Next on Denver 7 News at 4. As the Russian invasion into Ukraine continues, how international diplomats are taking action. And we take a look at how U.S. state leaders want to help. Plus, tens of thousands of Ukrainians fleeing the country.
It's not normal. Those people stand 7 hours with a baby on the border.
We hear from Coloradans who are trying to get a hold of their loved ones caught in the middle.
Thank you for joining us at 4. I'm Jessica Porter. After day 2 of Russian troops invading Ukraine, President Biden now plans to freeze assets of President Vladimir Putin and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, matching the EU sanctions against Russian leadership. Meantime, heavily armed Russian troops are heading towards the capital of Ukraine after heavy shelling and blasts were heard overnight. Ukrainian officials are urging the military to keep fighting and asking able-bodied men to take up arms. Chris Wynn has the latest developments from Washington.
Tension and fear mounting in Ukraine. The capital city of Kyiv lit up overnight. This bridge leading from Russian-held Crimea into the main part of Ukraine is where President Volodymyr Zelensky says the most intense fighting took place and where his army was able to push back Russian troops. Residents across the country fleeing for their lives.
We don't know what's going to happen here next. I think the best thing right now is to be safe, is not be here.
Ukrainian leaders, including former President Petro Poroshenko, encouraging those staying to take up arms to defend their country.
We are standing in line for the weapons. We are standing in line to give our blood to our soldiers.
Even as air raid sirens wailed, Russia continued its propaganda campaign, claiming its troops are there on a peacekeeping mission.
Nobody is going to attack the people of Ukraine. Nobody is going to somehow degrade the Ukrainian armed forces. We are talking about preventing neo-Nazis and those promoting genocide from ruling this country.
Zelensky says the latest U.S. sanctions against Moscow aren't enough.
This morning we are defending our country alone. Just like yesterday, the most powerful country in the world looked on from a distance. Russia was hit with sanctions yesterday, but these are not enough to get these foreign troops off our soil. Only through solidarity and determination can this be achieved.
In Washington, I'm Chris Wynn.
Minutes ago, the Associated Press reports that Russia has vetoed the UN Security Council's resolution attempt that would have Moscow halt their attack and withdraw their troops.
NATO announced today it is sending troops to help protect allies near Russia and Ukraine. Additional U.S. forces are also headed to Europe to support NATO. Troops have been repositioning around countries like Germany and Poland for weeks. This is video from the Army National Guard in Poland.
Short fuse deployments, their loved ones potentially going into harm's way or into very difficult situations. And so it just creates a lot of stress on individuals.
The United Service Organizations is also in Europe supporting U.S. forces and their allies. These are pictures that they shared with us. Oftentimes, soldiers can only bring gear to deployments, so the USO sends them food and toiletry care packages.
Oftentimes, soldiers are instructed to leave their mobile phones at home. So we set up areas there at the USO forward to ensure that they have ways to call back home, to connect with their families and their loved ones during this time of crisis.
The USO is a volunteer organization that works with the entire military, both overseas and at home before and after deployment. Rear Admiral Alan Reyes is part of the Navy Reserve himself, and he says simple support and gratitude helps.
Those kinds of messages of support really make people feel that much more stronger and more confident about the situation they're in and the separation they're going through and the fact that they will be back together with their loved ones soon.
Now, you can learn how to support the efforts on their website, uso.org. Another place to help is through United Help Ukraine. It is a large, highly rated U.S.-based charity organization. Now, the committee that oversees European soccer is moving the biggest club game of the year from St. Petersburg, Russia, to Paris. The final of the Men's Champions League is scheduled for May. They're also requiring Russian and Ukrainian clubs and national teams to play their home matches at neutral venues for the time being. Formula One is also pulling a race out of Russia. The Russian Grand Prix was scheduled for September. Several drivers have denounced Russia's actions. And tourism plans to the country are also quickly changing. Travel companies that book European tours and cruise lines are canceling their stops in Russia for the rest of the year. One travel expert said to bring visitor dollars to Russia would support Vladimir Putin's aggression.
Colorado state leaders are doing their part to call out Russia for its invasion of Ukraine and try to hold it accountable. Governor Jared Polis issued an executive order asking his staff to review contracts and determine whether there are any Russian-owned companies or subcontractors working for the state. If there are, the governor has directed his team to work to terminate those contracts. He said the state will work to welcome Ukrainian refugees and refocus on cyber security protections for critical infrastructure. The state Senate also unanimously passed a resolution offering support for Ukraine.
Anything we can do to ratchet up the economic pain and stringent sanctions, and Colorado needs to do its part.
Coming up at 6, we'll speak with a state lawmaker who has an election observer in Ukraine in 2014, or who was an election observer, and we'll get his take on the Russian invasion. As the turmoil continues to unfold in Ukraine, Coloradans have been in constant contact with their families there. Aurora resident Olena Myronenko fled the country several years ago to study abroad and has settled in Colorado. But since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, all she wants to do is be with her mom, dad, and grandma who live in the western part of Ukraine. The uncertainty of how deep into the country Russia plans on invading is still unclear, and for Myronenko's family, that has caused a lot of anxiety and fear.
They cannot live normal life and just, go to work. Their new normal is watching news and listening for siren. Like today they had a siren going off. It's unbelievable, to be honest, that it's even happening there. I think for everybody it's really hard to take it all in, because we see a lot of videos of shooting, everything going on there. And it just
Coming up tonight at 6, we'll hear from more Coloradans with families in Ukraine.
The news feed starts with new data showing inflation hitting historic highs. It's at its highest point in 4 decades. It could get worse as the conflict between Ukraine and Russia continues. At the same time, people seem to be taking on these high prices, with spending going up last month. Now, the cost to ship items may also soon raise prices even more. The Wall Street Journal is reporting container ship operators are set to have record high contracts, and that extra cost could be passed down onto consumers. Now, if you want a direct example of what rising prices are, just take a look at your fast food. Burger King's largest franchisee, which owns 14% of all the Burger Kings across the country, are cutting the amount of nuggets that you get in an order, going from 10 down to 8. Now, cyber attacks are expensive, especially for companies, but not everyone agrees on who should pay for them, how insurance companies are changing what they will cover, and the advice for all of us to give you the best chance of getting your data back.
And it's a historic day for the Supreme Court. Still ahead, we're learning more about who President Biden wants to see sitting on the high court.